think, okay?
Let's do it.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Heidi Meyer, and I am the Interim Dean of the Monteahuja College of Business here at Cleveland State University. I'm happy to welcome you to our Cornerstone Speaker Series of 2023. Our topic today is Frontiers in Sales Technology. Serving as our moderator today is Dr. Paul Mills. Dr. Mills is an assistant professor in the marketing department here at Cleveland State University, as well as the academic director of the Bernie Moreno Center for State Sales Excellence. We very much appreciate Dr. Mills serving as moderator today, and now I will turn it over to him to introduce our speakers. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Meyer. I appreciate that. I think that today's session is hopefully going to be really informative for folks and also a little bit of fun too. They're very interesting topics. And it touches on some of the issues that we spend a lot of time thinking about here at Cleveland State and in the sales center, not only to make sure that we're giving our graduates a full set of modern skills to bring with them into the workforce, but also to show the business community that we're engaged in those evolving trends in industry which are important and relevant to them and to our local economy. So we're really fortunate today to have assembled a great team to talk about this. And I'll briefly introduce our three panelists. And then, the first time that they sort of answer a question or something, if you guys want to elaborate a little bit more on your role in the organization, that would be great. So let me introduce Jeremy Halek, who's the Senior Director of Data Operations and Strategy at the Cleveland Cavaliers. And we were talking beforehand, what a great year to have somebody from the Cavs on. We're all excited about how the team is doing. Jeremy is experienced in leveraging technology and software to help drive revenue and to create new, more efficient business processes for the Cavs. He's passionate about CRM, Salesforce automation, and lead to revenue management. From the B2B side, we're happy to be joined by John White. And so John is the Vice President of Sales Operation at Eaton's Electrical Sector Americas. John has a customer-focused career that's responsible for customer support, for business analytics, sales excellence, and sales reporting function at Eaton. And to round out the panel, we're really excited to have with us Paul Roetzer. And Paul is the founder and the CEO of the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute and the author of a book on artificial intelligence in marketing. And maybe he can talk a little bit about that. So I thought I would sort of kick things off maybe with you, Jeremy, to talk a little bit about what are you currently doing? What are the Cavs doing with technology to help improve the sales process and the sales outcomes? What sort of problems are you working on, and what do you currently have implemented?
Sure. So thanks for having me. That's a big question, right? And I think first I'll kind of expand a little bit. So my role is I oversee a data operations department, really in charge of data warehousing, data modeling, data pipelines. We also oversee our CRM and marketing platforms for the company, not just for the Cavaliers, but Monsters, Charge, Cavs Legion, and Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. So I think it's kind of hard to distill a lot of these projects into 15-second, 20-second topics. But I think one of the bigger projects that we've done over the past few years is just really look at our technology infrastructure and say, is it working for us? Is it not? And it turns out it wasn't, basically because we had a lot of disconnected on-prem systems that just weren't easy to build on top of each other or create connected applications or really solve business problems in any efficient way. So we really tore a lot of it down, implemented a new data infrastructure in Amazon Web Services. We have a lot of that customer data and transactional data flowing to a brand new suite of Salesforce CRM and Marketing Cloud applications. So just starting there allowed us a basis to really leverage our in-house development teams to say, okay, well, now that we have modern architecture with API access, we can really build on top of that. So some of those things are easy wins, like just really when you look at the App Store that's connected to Salesforce, leveraging form, people display interest, we're able to get to them. I think we're measuring almost 20 times faster just because we're not taking data down from one system in a spreadsheet and uploading into another. We're actually just piping it right into our Salesforce system. So when we've measured how we're able to contact folks that have expressed interest in our products, we're seeing 20 times faster, which obviously if you connect to people faster, we've shown that they have a likelihood to close a lot better. So we've measured like a simple 5% bump in our revenue gains from just talking to people faster, which is kind of a no-brainer, but it's good that that's something that we've done and measured. Cool internal project we've done was we were tasked with All-Star Weekend last year. We hosted a lot of parties. The NBA, first of all, completely took over our arena, so we really didn't have space to operate internally. So we had parties all over the city, and we wanted a better way to track all of those folks internally through a dashboard, basically. So we leveraged iOS PassKit and built an integration with our Salesforce system. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but this is kind of the mobile ticket that we used to be able to utilize a modern experience of scanning into these different places and gave us a dashboard of who's where and how often they're coming in and their dwell time and things like that. So again, was a basis of the infrastructure that we leverage. So some other big topics that we are focused on this year's one is making our dynamic pricing models better. So and that's basically how we price individual tickets, similar to airlines, how those things change all the time. We do a similar process for our individual tickets. And we originally took a process where we had to take our data, analyze it, what is our sell-through, manipulate it on spreadsheets, and then re-upload it into our ticketing system. We utilized our SeatGeek Partners API to really connect to that, run the sell-through data through a machine learning model, re-upload it almost within 30 seconds now, so we can capitalize on our sell-through and demand a lot better and actually price our tickets the way they should be in the moment, rather than having a 1 or 2 day delay that has a lot of human interaction. So and then just things like predictive renewal ratings for members. So we use a lot of modeling to say, what is their past activity. There's a lot of variables that showcase if someone is they're likely to renew or not. And we spend different tactics and spend different time and resources on people that we know have a greater chance of not renewing, rather than someone that's been here 20 years and we know that there's a 98% chance they're going to renew no matter what we do. So let's spend our time and resources in a better way with folks that we know are on the fence and try to influence their decision. So and then similar things with new business lead scoring. So we take a lot of our people that are currently in the pipeline, people that have converted, look at who they are, their demographics, their engagement activity, and try to look at folks that are currently in the pipeline that look like those folks, and really not guarantee they're going to buy, but give our sales reps and the folks that are working those deals and inference that this person is probably has a better chance than others. So let's spend the appropriate time. So there's many other projects, but those are kind of some of the initial ones that we're working on and trying to make better. But again, it started with kind of our rechanging and restructuring our technology infrastructure.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, when we think about technology and AI and machine learning, I mean, a lot of people are thinking about consumer products, big brands, large retailers like Walmart collecting data. But a lot of business community here in Cleveland and throughout the country are manufacturers, B2B companies like Eaton. And I was wondering, John, from your point of view at Eaton, as a B2B manufacturer, I mean, how does the technology enable you to sort of transform your sales process?
Yeah, great question, Paul. So just you had asked, I think, on the introductions, a little more background on what our roles are. I think you covered it quite well. I have sales reporting, customer support, analytics, and sales excellence are the part of my organization. I lead the sales operations group here. I've been in this role since since April of last year. And just to give you a little bit of background, because some of the stuff I'm going to say will make more sense when you know what I've done in the past. So I led our services operations organization. We have over 800 people in the field servicing electrical equipment across the United States. And prior to that, I was in a sales leadership role and various marketing roles as well within Eaton. 15 years with Eaton, all based here in Pittsburgh at our electrical sector, America's headquarters. Your question though on the B2B side and big data and whatnot, the biggest things that we have going on these days and where we're seeing some of the stuff around artificial intelligence is, I call it the Panera model. And I'm not sure I may have seen that somewhere, or I've come up with that myself because I've been a customer of Panera, many times, and most of you have as well. But in many ways, you don't realize what happens when you experience Panera. But now you go into a Panera store for soup and a salad or a sandwich. You do the ordering. You actually do the pickup. So you service your table. So you're doing the waiter or waitress role. You eat the food and then you bus your own table and you leave the store. And in essence, the customer have actually done a lot of the work. But what we're seeing is more of our customers want to do self-service. They want to be able to put things in their own hands and not necessarily interact, with a person. And there's a lot of efficiencies in doing that. And so one of the things we've been working on for a couple of years is chatbot technologies. So if you go into our website, particularly in our distribution control piece of our business, a customer that has a credentialed login can actually go in and type in, an order number and ask when that's going to be shipped. They can expedite that order as well through that process and a tool that we call our order center. And so there's a lot of things that we're doing tied around, the customer, meeting the customer where they want to be met, how they want to be serviced. So that's one thing that we're doing, and we're starting to look at how we pull that into our website. Just to give you an idea, those of you that aren't familiar with Eaton, I know we're probably pretty well known in the Cleveland area, but our electrical sector business is last year we did about $13 billion in orders. So it's a significant size business that was actually up 34%. We're riding the wave of a mega trend in energy transition, which is a term you'll see a lot on our website. Our backlog has gone up tremendously. We get 28 million visits on our website annually. So there's a lot of traffic that's hitting our website. So we're a significant sized company. And as Paul mentioned, very much in the B2B, but we're also providing, products to consumers as well at the residential level, all the way up to the utility.
Fascinating. Yeah, Paul Roetzer, I thought I'd ask you, because you have a kind of a different perspective on this a little bit. You get contacted at your institute by how can we use AI? How can we get into AI? How can we get started on and all this? When we hear Eaton talk about, such large dollar volumes and the Cavs with thousands of fans they can collect data on and look at, is this technology right now really just a sandbox for the largest users and the big corporations? Is there a growing sort of digital divide between the haves, those capable of supporting that stuff, and smaller and medium-sized business? What do you guys see in terms of some tools that even smaller or medium-sized businesses are able to avail themselves of?
Yeah, so for the use cases that Jeremy and John were talking about, which are awesome, especially Jeremy's stuff, I didn't know that Cavs were doing all that, but it makes a ton of sense that they are. You're looking at like personalization and predictive modeling around decision-making and behavior. Those are more complex use cases. Like personalization is kind of the holy grail of AI. It's what everyone's sort of talked about for the last decade as being possible, but it's been very hard. And as Jeremy highlighted, oftentimes it's because the data is a mess. And even in organizations that have data scientists on staff and a chief data officer, a CIO, like it's still a problem of data. So to make a prediction about someone's buying behavior or whether or not they'll renew or whether or not they're going to buy the $1 million piece of equipment, You need very accurate, clean data, and many organizations don't have that. So that is often a larger enterprise play. If you want to do true personalization and predictive modeling, it tends to be organizations with lots of data and the ability to structure that data to make predictions. But AI, what ChatGPT enabled, was it brought AI to the masses. Everyone from students in 5th grade, like my kids, to my buddies in the basketball league, to my uncle who's in his 70s, talking to me about ChatGPT and their use of it. It democratized the access to artificial intelligence. It made it accessible to everyone. And what happens now is everyone, you can become aware of, like, you've been using AI in your daily life for like a decade, dozens of times. Spotify, Netflix, Gmail, Teslas, Amazon, like none of that stuff exists without the power of artificial intelligence. We just didn't realize we were interacting with it. Now ChatGPT and this whole generative AI movement with image generation and text generation, it made it accessible to everyone. And so a lot of small and mid-sized businesses are now racing along with a lot of enterprises who had no clue what they were doing. I've been on calls nonstop since November 30th last year with venture capital firms, large enterprises, small enterprises, colleges, grade schools. Everyone is trying to figure out what to do about AI now because ChatGPT brought it to the forefront of everyone's mind.
Absolutely.
Can I add on one of the thing that I just found very favorable about what Paul just said is the cleanliness of data and how just enormous of a task and an overwhelming task that is. I mean, we started a data operations group a year ago because we wanted to focus more on the data. And my group specifically has a lot of good skill sets, but I'm really focusing them on mapping tables and normalizing categories of data and just creating simple use cases that is not fun, not exciting, but is the basis for everything you want to do. And I don't want to overstate, like, when I talk about dynamic pricing model, like we're just looking at sell-through. That's not an overly complex data point that we have. We've just automated it, which allows us to capitalize on it more. But we want to take in 20 more data points about the weather and the day of the week and like all sorts of stuff that we're working tirelessly to try.
What
to
else is going on in town? Are there going to be visitors? Yeah, it's endless. Like, years ago, it's like, why did IBM buy the Weather Channel? Like, it wasn't like intuitive. And it's like, oh, wait, weather plays a major role in predicting all kinds of things. Or why did Amazon buy Whole Foods? Like, it's like, what are they doing with groceries? Well, because they know everything you buy online. They want to know what you buy offline. Like, you start realizing that what Google and Amazon and all these players have been doing is hoarding data to make predictions about behaviors and outcomes. That's the core of what AI does in a lot of enterprises.
Yeah, I guess I would ask, Jerry, you did a good job talking about the sort of technologies that you are using, and they certainly are exciting. But as we're saying here, it's a rapidly evolving marketplace. What do you see coming down the road? What are those things that you haven't integrated yet into the business, but you really got your eye on and think are going to be transformative for the Cavs?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot there, but we generally see and are bullish on just what the Web3 space brings us around digital identities. We've made a splash into NFTs, so I actually have a link here. So we've worked with a company called Suite to develop a couple of things. But one, if you go to My Cavs Locker, that's a space where we're trying to create a community to create digital collectibles and again, a community around that. But also we've launched something called a Cavs Gold Pass, which takes both creates an NFT out of an initial pass that's sellable, but also links a lot of the availability to purchase and integrate with on-court experiences. So things that you can't really buy off the street, but allows you to create some sort of content or exclusive access through that pass. So we're trying to figure out where we play in it. And I think that, smart contracts, our tickets eventually will be probably tied to a digital identity. So we, don't think we have definitely any of the answers, but we're definitely in the space and want to continue to see where that evolves in the sports industry. Some really cool technology that Paul and I he brought up a little bit was one thing that we launched at CES with Canon. It's called their Sea View, which basically is a virtual reality overlay over the current content or current action on the court. So we have about 100 cameras. I think it's us and the Brooklyn Nets are the ones that are trying this technology out, but 100 cameras that are capturing all the content in real time, rendering it back to, I can't tell you how many computers are probably rendering it, but allows us to, or allows someone to put a headset on and look at the content or the view from any point in the arena, including standing on center court and watching what's going on around you. So that is really, really cool technology, and it's just the start. But I think Adam Silver showed this at the NBA All-Star, where you can also overlay a digital avatar of yourself on someone and show yourself dunking, which is pretty cool. So I think those are just like showing you what's available, but how does that apply to a business? I think in the future, this is myself, my CIO kind of riffing on what this could be is, digital arenas, right? Selling tickets to millions of people and allowing you to monetize, and the arena being personalized to that person, right? You pick the seat color, you pick the display ads directly to that person and their behavior, right? So this is really the start of how do we cater and service to the 99% of fans that are never going to come into our building. We're focused a lot of the people that are in our building, but there's just enormous opportunity outside of it, and the technology is starting to catch up where we can start to realistically talk about these things that maybe are 5 years down the road, but we definitely want to be on the forefront of what that looks like. So, and then the last one I just want to talk about, Paul brought up Chat GPT, which I think is like the buzzword around every single thing we talk about, but I don't totally believe the dashboard is dead. My CIO tells me that every day, and I think that there's a place for them, but how do we democratize internal data? How do we create a querying tool with natural language processing that allows someone to ask an Echo or some other tool like, hey, what were the tickets like sold yesterday? How did this last marketing campaign do, without having to dive through 20 dashboards to try and get that answer? So we're trying to figure out what is the next iteration internally of how executives and interested folks interact with data. And I think that ChatGPT is really showcased an example of something we want to mirror, not to that complexity, but what are different ways we can give information to people in the way they need it, and feed them interesting data points that allow them to make decisions faster than even going to a dashboard and consuming their own data. So
I'll riff on that real quick. I think that capability is going to be in every single business within like 2 to 3 years. I know people who are racing to build exactly what you just explained. Venture capital will throw money at that like crazy, because the democratization of access to data. So I don't have to look at charts and graphs and build pivot tables. And on the fly, I can ask any KPI, any data point, or I can have it actually tell me if there's anomalies in my data, it flags them for me. Like that would be transformational for a lot of companies. And I think you could do it without needing a ton of data cleansing and structure. It's just the data lives in the analytics. It lives in all these platforms. You just need the language models that are capable of understanding the data and telling you what it's doing. I think that's something. The digital arena is awesome because that could apply to a lot of businesses and live events, not just sports. But I agree that's a few years off. Data, being able to like interact with it and talk to it and learn from it. I think that's a very near-term thing that a lot of businesses are going to have access to.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that we were buoyed by the idea that ChatGPT and these open AI platforms, and I've heard democratization or leveling the playing field, letting people enter. One of the early players in OpenAI, the platform that sort of gave birth to ChatGPT, one of the folks heavily involved was Elon Musk, as you know. And Elon has been reported as saying that AI poses one of the biggest risks to civilization as well. I mean, how do you feel? Does the sword cut both ways with AI? How are we figuring out not only how to use it better, but where we need to be cautious?
So I'll offer a quick perspective. So first, Elon Musk has zero involvement with OpenAI anymore. He did start it, he named it, but it was co-founded with a dude named Sam Altman, who was the head of Y Combinator and like kind of an incubator for startups. Greg Brockman, Reid Hoffman, a few other people. And their idea was to democratize the most advanced AI in the world by making it open. and they were a nonprofit when they started. They are not a nonprofit anymore, and they are by no means democratizing access to what they're building. They're actually one of the more closed labs right now. And Elon has washed his hands of OpenAI and doesn't want anything to do with them, basically, because he does fear, and rightfully so, that it could be very dangerous to build what they're trying to build, because they're trying to build general intelligence. They are not trying to build marketing and sales tools. That is not why they exist. They are built to achieve human level intelligence in machines, and that's a very scary thing for people. Without going too far into it, what I will say is the closest analogy to consider is the advent of the internet. And if we go back to the early 90s and say, wow, should we allow society to have access to the internet? They're going to build a dark web and all these horrible things are going to be done on the web. Should we still build the internet? The answer would be yes, 100 times out of 100. You're still going to build it. There are many, many unknowns. There are many very real fears, justifiable fears about AI. But the possibility and potential of it to impact humanity is so significant that you have to build it. You have to race forward, and you have to try and put guardrails in place along the way.
Absolutely. John, I think we're interested in how this technology is sort of changing the skills of the salesperson. One of the things that was talked about with technology is replacing jobs that people are doing, eliminating positions. How at Eaton is access to this technology and sort of automating certain parts of the process, and how is that affecting the skills that B2B salespeople have today? How is their job changed? What's easier and what's harder for them?
Yeah, I'll start with the we're underway with a pretty significant Salesforce implementation. Like Jeremy may have mentioned Salesforce and the use for the Cavaliers. We started this journey probably about 2 years ago, and the expectation when we're complete is that we have a CRM, customer relationship management tool, partner relationship management tool. But we also have customer support, case management, as well as field service. So those are like the three big elements that we're really converging around delivering value to our customers. And the reason I bring that up is eventually that becomes something that the salesperson has access to when they sell a product to a customer. Let's just say a hospital, for instance. Not only do we know what went in there, when it went in there, but we know when the hospital facilities folks call us about customer support, how often it's happening. And when a service person is dispatched to it, they also will have access to that information. That is much easier than looking up things or calling people. And so there's a tremendous amount of efficiency gained, from that. So the salesperson has a huge leg up post Salesforce implementation on where our products are, how they're performing, and perhaps opportunities to create additional value for our customers. Even when a customer would contact us from a customer support standpoint, there's many features that customers don't use. If you think about how you use technology right now, many of us are only skimming the surface of what it could be used for. Take Microsoft Word or Excel or PowerPoint, any of the tools that we use every day. You're only using a portion of it. And so we have an opportunity through those interactions to help our customers, understand how better to use it. The other thing I would say is we had an interaction, how does this change a salesperson's, role and responsibility? I think there's still a huge opportunity for our salespeople to inform our customers. So they're not doing the stuff that customers can find out on the internet, doing their own search. And there's a huge convergence between marketing and sales right now, where so many of our buyers are able to find information out on their own. But there's a lot of things that the buyer doesn't necessarily understand. So I'll give you an example. We're big into electric vehicle infrastructure, right? So as a company that provides most of the components that allow that power to flow from the utility to the car, including the connectivity to the car, we've been engaged in this since like 2007 or so on the car side of things. We had a hospital facility that we were talking to, and they were going to buy, or they were very interested in buying a product that was, Paul just mentioned about openness, right, and democratization. They were about to purchase a system that was closed, that they would have only been reliant on that one particular company for their charging infrastructure from now almost in perpetuity until they would replace it. Our system is open, so they have the ability to use many different, the Ford network can connect to it eventually. I'm sure the Tesla one will too, charge point. So those aren't things that customers will necessarily be able to find out or figure out on their own, and they end up making buying mistakes. So I think our salespeople have an important role in helping to educate the buying decision. And maybe that isn't important to that customer. Maybe price is more important and it's a less expensive thing, and they make the decision based on that. But they need to be informed, and our salespeople are in many ways the front line piece of that information, helping our customers make decisions.
Yeah, is technology distancing salespeople? I mean, is your sales force doing face-to-face calling and meeting with customers to the extent you feel they need to and always have?
Yeah, we do a lot of business with repeat customers. Like, most of our customers aren't new to the Eaton brand, and they understand us. They know who we are. But so face-to-face meetings are still critically important because, in the business that we're in, relationships still matter, and there's nothing that replaces face-to-face meetings and building relationships. There's nothing more important in building and sustaining relationships, I don't think, than face-to-face meetings. You can't replicate it. Experiencing things, getting to know somebody on a personal level still matters regardless of the technology. And in fact, the technology allows our people then to spend more time in face-to-face meetings instead of doing things that could be routinely done, through technology. So we're trying to, improve the efficiency, and we actually do annual, surveys, sales activity surveys, with our teams to make sure that we're trending in the right direction, getting them out in front of our customers.
I think that's one of the misconceptions on AI, is that it's like people fear it's going to replace and everything. And that is what you just said, John, is exactly what it should do. If anything, it's a driver of efficiency to say, okay, can we get another 20% out of that person next year that they can be meeting with people, traveling, going and seeing people. Like that's where AI and advanced technology should take us, is the more human things that the machine can't do, relationship building, developing, understanding emotions and impact and where people are at in their lives and all the things that go in. Like, dealing with humans is messy, and machines aren't very good at the messy part.
Yeah, and Paul, you mentioned something too about small businesses and whether this technology is really only for the bigger businesses. It's funny, we actually, as a big business, look at smaller businesses to see them being fleet of foot, and like how they can turn really fast. And there's a lot of technologies out there that are built for small businesses. And I'll give you a case in point. Being in the electrical industry, I actually had at my charging station, I have an electric vehicle, and I contacted one of our residential contractors. We have an Eaton certified contractor network, King Electric here in Pittsburgh. They came out to my home. They had an iPad. I knew when they were going to arrive. Like, it told me that, so they GPS wise knew, where the technician was, when they would arrive, who was going to be servicing me. They got to my house. They looked at what needed to be done. They worked up a quote on the iPad, set it to my email inbox, and on the iPad, I acknowledged it, put a signature on. When they were done, they took a credit card and swiped it through a tile, I think it's a tile, and we were done. Like, and it was done in like 2 hours. And I walked away from that going, wow, like, how do we scale that? And this was a year and a half ago. How do we scale that into into an Eaton? And we're on our path to do that. We're just, this is a battleship that takes a lot more to maneuver than a smaller business. So I think there's huge opportunities for small businesses.
It's all about removing friction, whether it's like Cavs and consumer or B2B, big, small. You're just trying to get the friction out of the buying process. And that's exactly what you just described, John. It's like just simple. It's easy. It's convenient. It's personalized. Like, I want that as a consumer.
Yeah, I think internally, real quick, I try to preach, if we have proper business processes and technology, that does all the work that allows you to understand what you want to impact, right? Spend your time as a salesperson trying to influence the deal because you know where it sits, or figure out that someone's unhappy. Don't spend 2 days putting data together and collecting spreadsheets that are expired the moment you figure something out. Can we know about that just by using a business process, and then spend the time that you would have actually figure out a strategy to impact that data point? Because I think without those, people spend 50% of their time just collecting, aggregating spreadsheets, cleaning data, and you don't really let them utilize their time as efficiently as possible. So, and then on the front end, I think there's more focus on like AI on the marketing end, on the trying to get people exposed to your product, right? So instead of having a salesperson send 100 emails to random people, people are online telling you what they want or searching for what they want, right? Let's arm our website with more use cases on why our products are good, and case studies, and let them read those on their own accord, and then let them interact with us with the medium that they want. Do they want to, more complex products like a sponsorship rather than a ticket is, you have more human interaction on a big sponsorship deal than potentially a single game ticket, but you should try to offer the consumer the mechanism they want to engage with and allow them to transact in kind of the method they want.
So I just wanted to say to our audience, we like to get to some of the questions you may have in mind. So I know that Heather has the chat box open, and maybe you could start to put some questions in there. We'll have some time here at the latter end of the webinar to ask our panelists some of your questions. But let me ask you, Paul, when I first met you, when I reached out to you, I said, hey, there's a Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute, and they put on a convention with vendors, and it sounds like the place to be. And then I was surprised to see, it was a happy surprise, it was here in Cleveland, Ohio, right? So I was thinking, oh, this is going to be in Palo Alto, or I'm going to be going up to Boston to see this. And yet, your institute is based here. And obviously we're hearing from folks like Jeremy and from John that this is a very active community in embracing these technologies. Maybe you can tell us a little bit, sort of, where is Cleveland in the lay of the land of some of these new technologies? Because you put on an event that brings all these folks together. So you must have your finger on the pulse of this a little bit.
Yeah, I started the Institute in 2016. I had started researching AI in 2011 and trying to understand it. I was running my marketing agency at the time. And so we just started it as like a way to explore and tell the story of AI. And then in 2019, I started the Marketing AI Conference, put it in Cleveland, got laughed at by a lot of my East and West Coast friends that I was going to try and do a AI event in Cleveland, still kind of get laughed at sometimes. So I think that Cleveland, I would say, hasn't supported the initiative greatly. We struggled to get Cleveland companies to even show up at the event. We've struggled to get support from organizations in Cleveland. I don't think I would say Cleveland has had the greatest vision for advanced technology and an opportunity to build smarter companies with it. I think that ChatGPT changed that. I've taken a lot of calls from Cleveland companies and organizations in the last couple of weeks and months, which is fantastic. I think there's an opportunity to do something much greater here with this. I don't think that we have a ton of AI startups. Like right now, there's not a massive ecosystem of AI funded startups here. The organizations that provide the funding in Cleveland are just themselves starting to kind of figure out what AI is and how they should be investing in it. And then a lot of the big companies, if they were doing it, they weren't talking about it. We've struggled to find organizations in town outside of some of the obvious players like a Progressive and Cleveland Clinic and things like that, where obviously they're using AI. But what's happened is, in many cases, the big enterprises have been using AI for operations for the last 10 years. Their CIO has been thinking about it. They've been doing it in but it hasn't been in marketing and sales and service. And so we're just starting to see a shift now where marketing, sales, and service leaders are aware that there are smarter ways to do what they're doing, and they're actually seeking AI technology to help them do that. And that's not just Cleveland, that is universal. It has been a very slow moving thing. And a lot of the SaaS companies, honestly, that provide this software weren't developing very intelligent software. It was still all rules-based. Like John, you mentioned the chatbot. If you built that chatbot a few years ago, my guess is that chatbot is very rules-based. You write all the rules of what it's going to do and what it's able to say. It is not like interacting with ChatGPT where I can just ask it whatever I want and it just figures out the answers. But that's where all this is moving, is all these rules-based software solutions that we've done and processes we've created. They're going to become more intelligent. The machine is going to learn from data. It's going to start making recommendations. So I'm optimistic that Cleveland can play a role in some way in this wave that's about to happen with AI, but I wouldn't say by any means that it's been a progressive market in terms of its understanding and adoption.
I certainly can say, and I got a question from one of our audience members. So Mary Michelle asked a question: what are the teachable skills that my students will most benefit from having in their back pocket when they graduate, so that they can compete in the sales workforce? And I thought I'd also give you my perspective and then ask you, because they're going to leave us and go out into the workforce, what the Cavs or what Eaton are looking for in young people coming into sales roles and their knowledge and what technologies would best suit them. We're making efforts to, for example, this semester, we had some grants that were delivered to us to introduce more analytics into course material here. So in my advanced sales class, the students are able to do pipeline analysis using Salesforce.com as a platform, and with an add-in from a company called SmartFox Pro that is a simple, easy interface for them to start to look at AI type questions. How can we use this data and change some of the rules, and what would the outcome of that be? So we're certainly trying hard to get them hands-on experience with those tools. So John, what would you and Jeremy, what are you looking for when you're hiring and recruiting? How is AI helping you do that? It may be that you're able to, just as we prioritize leads using AI, prioritize candidates using AI, and what tools should they come into your sales organization possessing?
Yeah, Paul, I'm not aware of us using AI right now from an HR perspective in terms of screening candidates, but boy, you'd certainly think there'd be an opportunity there. When we look for salespeople entering our sales organization, we tend to look for things that maybe this isn't necessarily the answer you were looking for, but like we're looking for leadership. We're looking for attributes that that demonstrate somebody's willingness to lead and kind of step out there and push themselves. We look for people that want to have lifelong learning. So people that are interested in things that aren't necessarily just what's in their core curriculum, but things that are outside of it as well. I also think we're looking for people that match up with our focus on ethics, which is not an easy thing to measure either. But those are the kind of interview questions that we tend to ask, as we're sourcing candidates, for our organization, particularly in a sales role. Sales roles have a lot of autonomy, so you're putting a lot of trust in somebody to go out and do the right things. So we want to make sure we have the right people from a character perspective to go out and do those types of things. That's the other stuff I think we can train as they come into our organization.
Yeah, I don't want to speak because I'm not on the sales leadership. I think I can answer this question the best I can. Is that it does help if someone does have previous experience with the systems we use. Obviously, I think if not, showing that they've used technology or are interested in it. I think that we're not specifically screening for that, but we will be soon, and asking more specific questions. I think something that we've seen is just data literacy over the whole organization, and we've actually started a platform with some of the sales folks as a test group. Is we need to get a baseline across the organization of people just understanding data, because we can produce all the reports we want and give everyone all the tools, but if they don't understand how to interact with that and how to understand how that could make them better, more efficient. Some people organically do it. Some people are more data driven. Some people are more analyst savvy in a sales role. And you see those people naturally find the pockets of productivity that allow them to get ahead. So I don't think we're specifically screening for that today, even though it's kind of, if you do have some of those skills, you're going to stand out and you'll probably get hired. But I think it's going to be a prerequisite, not just in sales, but across as every single thing becomes database and application driven, you really need to have an understanding of them at a base level of how to interact with them, or at least try make it in some way that you're positive around it, or else it's going to be hard to just contribute to the economy pretty soon. So I guess that's the roundabout way of hopefully answering the question.
Sure. And Jeremy, when I think about the kinds of data that you're looking at, I mean, I'm imagining that you're collecting data on your fans when they come to the game. If you could, you would want to know things like what are they doing during, breaks in the action? Are they going to buy food, or are they going to the merchandise stand to get merchandise? And it helps you with understanding the behavior of those customers. It probably also creates in some fans' minds a concern, like, how much do they know about me? And I mean, we like to think that we're collecting that data to be helpful to them, right? To make the experience even more pleasant for them. But what are the Cavs doing in regards to maybe fans feeling like they're watching me and maybe I don't like that too much?
I would say that we're extremely cautious. There's some points of data that we're trying to, for ticketing, we know everything about, when you ticket, we know when you scanned in the building. We've done some things with like a whale watching, like the casino industry does. Hey, this person's here, and we send a note to that rep saying, hey, they walked in this gate and they're here. So if you want to meet with them, now that's, we're not actively saying, hey, we saw you come in, 10 minutes ago. I think it's more of a helpful thing to get in front of them. So from a concession and retail standpoint, that's one of our big initiatives. Is we don't really have a mechanism to track an individual on every transaction besides a loaded ticket. Then we can track the ticket back to them. But Wi-Fi, so we do know when you come into the building, when you log into our Wi-Fi, and then we know your device and can actually send messages. But we've only explored them with hesitancy and not trying to cause concern, I would say. So we don't have the right answer. I know we're exploring it. We have the ability to, but I think we don't know the right way, and we're trying to err on the side of being using our data to either create a better experience for them or offer them better products, and we target them and not just blanket them with general emails of, hey, we saw you did this, you bought 7 hats, so you'll probably want to know the next hat that comes on sale. So we're utilizing it. I wouldn't say we're overly aggressive just because we don't want to appear, and I don't think we're doing anything unethical anyway, that we're even getting close to that line, but it's definitely one that's difficult to find, that you want to make sure that the consumer believes you have their best intention at heart. So
yeah, John, I'm interested with folks like Eaton, the kinds of data that you're collecting. Have you started your sales force to look at collecting data through social platforms, for example, LinkedIn platforms or other social platforms that are allowing your salespeople to walk in better prepared for the personality of the buyer, their interests, what school they went to, or is it not reached that level yet?
Yeah, I'd say we're just at the beginning stages of using that. I think it's largely up to the salesperson in terms of what they're doing. We haven't necessarily institutionalized that mechanism specifically around LinkedIn. Almost every one of our salespeople is on LinkedIn. They can find the buyer that they're going to meet with on LinkedIn and learn a little bit more about them and be prepared. But there's nothing that I could tell you that specifically we're doing around LinkedIn. I will tell you though, moving forward, what I think is really interesting around data, particularly around energy data, is in the home and in connected devices. So we've gotten more and more connected devices going out into new homes. So Wi-Fi light switch, Wi-Fi enabled outlet, in your home that you plug things into. But maybe more importantly are the breakers that all that power flows through are becoming smarter and smarter. One of the examples of that is we have a breaker now. When I was talking about electric vehicles, the breaker, the electric vehicle charging actually can take place in the breaker now. So a wire comes out of it. You don't actually need in the home a separate box. It can actually all be done in your panel. But the power of this is understanding, so I'm using the electric car, but it could be any appliance as those breakers become smarter and smarter. Utilities now will have the ability, and I'm sure there will be some kind of agreement with the homeowner, but how energy is actually being used in those homes. And products have energy, electrical signatures to them. Like a vacuum cleaner looks much different than a toaster, or your range, and those types of things. And I think over time you're going to see that data collection being utilized by utilities to not only plan for daily events or weekly events, but long-term resource planning as well. And that is going to be really interesting to see how that works out, especially in a energy transition type application where more renewables come into play, on a home, whether it's solar or battery walls or those types of things.
Sure.
And cars themselves, becoming a source of power, emergency power in some cases for the home.
So this idea of smart embedded technology, I think I was watching a news report last night on this Norfolk Southern derailment in Ohio, and they were saying that these trains are equipped with, but weren't using hot boxes with sensors that are monitoring the track thing, but they're used in certain cases and not others. And this ties into a question asked by one of our attendees, Gabe. So Gabe said he wanted to ask you, John, how much of your data requires that the sales team input information versus generating it automatically in some way through sensors, through these embedded devices and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So I would say still early stages on data entry. A lot of our data entry, on the customer side of things, it's all there. That's been around for a while. We've had a CRM tool in place for I think the last 12 years or so. But either Jeremy or Paul talked about it. Those are on-premise things that we have right now, and we data is a big issue for us too, and in terms of how we access that data, how that data is democratized, and how easily it is to manipulate. So we're spending a lot of time on the data side of things as well. But for our sales team, a lot of that data from the customer side is actually easily accessible. And moving forward with our Salesforce implementation, our sales team will be able to look at various case management issues. Was the customer satisfied at the end? How did they respond to it? How often are they calling? And there's a ton of analytics through a tool called Einstein, which is a Salesforce add-on. That's their artificial intelligence that does a tremendous amount of analytics for salespeople that make it much easier for them instead of them having to try to figure out these things on their own.
Yeah, we got a question from Craig, who asked, and I think, Paul, maybe you want to handle this. What are the key metrics that a company can utilize to support the business case for investing in some of these technologies? How do they figure the ROI of this?
Yeah, the key thing is, and AI or whatever form of sales technology we're talking about, it's just tools and technologies to achieve business outcomes. So the answer is whatever the metrics are that the C-suite cares about. So if you're being driven towards efficiency or churn reduction or lifetime value increase, like they're just tools to help you achieve those outcomes better. And so what I always advise people who come to me is like, oh, we need to get AI. I was like, do you really? Like, what you need is technology to help you achieve business outcomes. Now, the AI might help you do it more efficiently. So I might agree with you that you need AI, but what you need to do is make a business case. Because in some cases, you're going to have the board or the CEO say, hey, we need to go find some AI tools. It's the hottest thing. Like everybody's doing it and I'm getting pressured to figure out AI, in which case you're going to kind of back into why you do it. In other cases, they're never going to care that you used AI. So whether you're using Einstein or just Salesforce traditional, like it doesn't really matter. What matters is we found a way to increase productivity 30% this year, or we increased, as Jeremy started, 5% an increase in lifetime value of a customer, whatever those numbers are. That hasn't changed. The tech is changing. It's moving forward rapidly, but the need to tie what you do to known business outcomes that affect the growth and success of the company, that doesn't change. Just like with John, the fundamentals of a great salesperson doesn't change. They're just tools to help us be smarter about how we're doing it.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Paul was saying, one of the metrics from a business case standpoint is, dollars per service request interaction. So if you're, I have a customer support organization, the more self-service we can drive, the more we can drive customers to self-service, the lower the dollar per customer service interaction that we have, right? So that's a business case, example. And at the same time, that's how the customers want to be, that's how they want to address customer service type things. And so our net promoter score, then we tend to see go higher as we're meeting them at the place that they want to be met. So two business cases, I guess, that I would explore if you're looking at this technology.
Yeah, that's encouraging. And certainly, Paul, your events and your courses that you hold are really probably a good first place for people even who are thinking about this to start to understand what questions are important to them, I would guess.
Yeah, the problem we're facing right now in business is we have a bunch of leaders making decisions around AI when they don't even understand what it is. Like that's a fundamental problem. You have all these people racing, like, let's get ChatGPT and let's start using it in sales emails and all this. And like, you don't know how a language model works. Like just very base understanding. And you can learn AI in like an hour. Like it doesn't, you have to go back to school to understand the fundamentals of what it is and how it works. You can literally learn it in an hour. And then you can be more educated in your use of these tools and like how to solve problems differently. I mean, it's really what it comes down to is tactical ways to use it in the near term. And then long term, what are the big goals, challenges we're facing? And are there smarter ways to solve those problems than we've traditionally tried? And until you understand what AI is, you're not going to be able to answer that question.
And Paul, as an academic, we say, but sure, go back to school.
But the MBA doesn't hurt from CSU.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're coming up on the end of our hour. So I want to respect your time and our audience's time. I want to thank you so much, Paul and John and Jeremy, for agreeing to do this and working in advance to sort of think about topics that we felt would be interested. And we think this has been a great step in talking about good things that are happening here in Cleveland. We do have another Cornerstone speaker series. It's coming up on Thursday, March 23rd, on the topic of activist investing. The discussion will be led by Dr. Yinji Shen from our finance department. And so we hope that some of you will join us for that webinar as well. You can go on the Cornerstone series website and register for that event. I want to again thank our audience, but our panelists for giving up of their time and sharing interesting applications and thoughts and their expertise on this subject. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks very much.
Yep. Nice meeting you all. Take care.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.